everybody, and welcome to Yeah, We Read It. My name's Laura. I'm one of your hosts,
My name is Meggie. I'm the other host.
and you've caught us on the second episode of our 12th question mark season. We're reading Gossip Girl. We are back after a little bit of a break after launching hard with the first book, but we are
Hey,
so excited to pick this season back the frick up.
yeah, we took a little break because Maggie took a little break from their relationship. So maybe we'll have some caller daddy esque
Ooh,
escapades for single Meg. I
ooh.
don't know.
I
I don't
can't,
know.
I love it. Yeah, maybe this is kind of like a not only a reinventing for you, but also for the podcast.
I mean, our dynamic is gonna change now, but I
Yeah.
think it'll be in a. We'll see. Hey, who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah, the dynamic's gonna change. Like Maggie's gonna be, discovering a lot of things. I'll probably start wearing a cool hat every now and again. I'm
I
also
but
determined to reinvent myself in tandem.
I think that two of us in healthy relationships, that's a boring dynamic. But one of us in
No,
a
no,
healthy
no,
relationship
no.
and the other one kind of having a dumpster fire single time. Now that's something
Nah,
we can
that's what
market.
the podcast needed.
That's it exactly. That's what I was gonna say in that exact Italian accent.
Oh, that's so funny. But yes, we will be reconvening our normal Wednesday slot of schedules and reading the next 10 books of Gossip Girl. I
Oh
think
my
there are
god.
so many of them. And I can't wait. These books are so digestible. They're very easy to read. But boy, is
Are they?
the content so small. I feel like in this book, particularly, like four things happened and it was 200 pages. And I was like, this still felt a little too long for the like limited amount of plot that there was.
It is kind of interesting that we got to thrive in a time of young adult books when they came out like episodes of television. It was like,
So
okay, and now
true.
we have the new book release. And what do? They just kind of live their life. And there's sometimes
Yeah.
a little drama.
Yeah. Like this book, I really hope this series gets like 10 times more dramatic because boy did I want even more drama this book.
I know. And I always, I relish those private Kate Bryan days when a murder could just happen in the book, and you're
uh
like, oh my God, what is going
Honestly,
on?
I loved how insane that series was. There was witches, there was a fucking desert island. It was amazing. It was amazing. And maybe
It was
maybe
so
that's
fun.
what'll happen in Gossip Girl. I don't remember what happens in the rest of the series. So
That's fair. And I mean, honestly, Cicely von Sleaton, whatever her name is, I don't know. I just made it up on the spot.
it was great.
She uses a lot of really good descriptions in
Yeah.
the books, and I'm learning a lot of like new vocabulary too. So I do commend her for this. I do like the
Yeah.
Gossip Girl series so far.
What's really going to be interesting as we continue this series is Cecily von Zieglisser. I don't
There
know.
we
I'm
go.
trying to. She stops writing this series at some point, and ghostwriters do pick it up for her. So
Oh,
I'm really excited
really?
to see, kind of like we had ghostwriters in Vampire Diaries, if we'll kind of get to notice a writing style change when we get to those ghostwritten books.
Who's to say? But for now, we got Cicely, and we're gonna dive into her second book. You know, you love me. That's the name of it. But
And I and
also,
I guess I do love
you know,
Cecily.
you
You're
love
right. That was
me.
very confident, and I love the energy you're bringing.
So, winter is coming up on the Upper East Side. It's
Just like
senior
Game of Thrones.
year, just like Game of Thrones, just like real life right now. We're in fall.
Yeah. Oh my god, perfect.
Senior year, time to start getting ready, applying to some Ivy League schools. And Blair is getting dinner with her freshly gay dad. The dad.
Fresh,
I don't know.
hot out of the oven.
His hot to go dad.
You know,
Gay.
and the interesting thing about having her dad as a gay character is because like I feel like Cecily writes some like kind of problematic things about like how flamboyant he is and how like Blair hates that he's gay but loves that he buys her good shoes, and it's like okay, this is I
Oh,
think
it's so. Yeah.
trying to be accepting but like in a very problematic way.
I mean, very early 2000s of like,
Yeah.
I'm the straight woman with a gay best friend who happens
Yeah.
to be my dad buying me Manolos.
Yikes.
Um, and that's what he
But
does here.
anyway, yeah, and is her dad is also, I think, like, has, like, a boyfriend or a husband. He lives in France, I wanna say. He's living
Okay,
his best life.
I don't know, and obviously this is much different than the show, but in the show, he is married to one of Blair's mom's former models. They ran
Yikes.
away together, which is
That's
spicy.
See, that's the drama this book needed because here we're just like, dad's doing great. He's buying his daughter shoes. And he's taking her out to a nice steak dinner.
Yeah, they're getting steak dinner, her dad and Nate, and, just the same way that I feel in the presence of my dad, all Blair can think about is fucking. She just wants to fuck her boyfriend.
We have once again found ourselves in Blair's pretty little mind being like, "Great, I'm gonna fuck Nate after my birthday dinner. It'll be the perfect time." She still has not just acted, which she's missing windows left and right.
Yeah.
Um, and they're having a very not sexy conversation because they're essentially just talking about like what happens after high school. And Blair, obviously, she's like, I'm going to go to Yale. That's my entire personality. But Nate has no solid future plans, nor does he have the capacity to comprehend them.
If you were a parent watching these two have a conversation, I would be having a meltdown. Blair's not applying to any safeties. Nate doesn't think he's going to get into Yale. He says it's a fat chance. I want to take the year off to sail,
Yeah.
which, okay, that's fine. I actually do think that there should be a gap year, but he smokes weed all the time. God, I'm like older and I'm just like these kids, they don't know anything about their
I
life.
know. Isn't that I feel like that's kind of my favorite thing about growing up is you watch something from like or like digest something some content from your youth and you're like, I really disagree with this now. Like I watched Lilo and Stitch the other night and I was like, Nani's really just trying her best. Give her a fucking break, Lilo. I was
I
getting
know,
so
it's
mad.
so funny, and then I think about if I ever got lunch with 17-year-old me who smoked pot all the time and probably would have loved to go sailing for a year, I would be like, "Sell out" to me now, and I'm like, "No, please, I'm still cool."
Like I'm just also more responsible and objectively that is more fun than being high all the time and with no plans at
Exactly.
all.
So,
Um
Blair leaves this dinner with the idea of having sex, and it's a pretty great timing because her dad also got her a pair of new shoes that she's like, "I'm
love.
gonna surprise Nate with this and nothing else on."
Yeah. Woof. Meanwhile, Serena and Dan are hanging out, eating ice cream. They're kind of like light dating. It's kind of like they're just like friends that are a little bit flirty. There's not anything really substantial here. Dan is
No.
being obsessive as fuck though. And Serena's still giving him the time of day, which is honestly shocking to me.
Yeah, it's pretty weird, but he does recommend a book to her, and Serena admits that she can't read because she's an idiot with no attention span.
Yeah.
And they start talking about colleges. Our idealistic Serena, even though she can't read, she wants to go to Brown,
Because
where
that's
her
where her
brother
brother
is.
goes.
And so her and Dan concoct this idea that they're both going to travel up to Brown, and Dan in his head is like, "This, oh, it's going to be so romantic. And in the
Dan
fall, we'll
Dan
see
Yeah, Dan
a college."
legitimately is like, this means we're falling in love. We're making plans to go visit a college together. Like he is 0 to 600. Like he goes so fast, so quick. Um
I will say
s-
they do
Ugh.
kiss, after they walk back to, Serena's stoop, which
Yeah.
I'm not saying she's leading him on. I'm never gonna say that. Girls just wanna have fun, and they can. But I would be a little bit confused if someone kissed me, I think, after what I
Yeah.
thought was a date.
Yeah, my favorite thing after this is obviously like Dan like kisses her and he kind of goes in for another one and Serena like kind of just like nuzzles into his head instead and she goes into the elevator afterwards and is like I'm really happy that Dan is becoming a good friend of mine. Like she is friend zoning him so hard in her head.
Yeah, and Dan's responding by watching her life through the window. He's just on the street just watching her.
Ugh, ugh. It's
So
not
that's
terrifying at all.
happening. Meanwhile, Nate, we go back to him and Blair. He is telling Blair that he's going to go see Brown this weekend. They had plans to go see Yale, and she is not really listening because she's like, I'm down bad. I'm spritzing myself with perfume. I'm putting on my Manolos. I'm ready to fuck.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
they
she's ready to go.
they start getting hot and heavy, but boy, do they get interrupted because mom and her boyfriend Cyrus burst through the front door and are like, Blair, where are you? And
Oh, yeah, they're
it was
engaged.
laughably best timing. And yeah, they're surprised we're engaged.
They're engaged. She doesn't really like Cyrus at all, because he kind of seems like a quirky guy. If you need kind of a visual representation of Cyrus, he is played by Wallace Shawn, um,
Who is
who's
that?
the guy who says "inconceivable" in Princess Bride, which
Oh,
I think is great casting.
great
So if you're
casting.
listening to this, it's Wallace Shawn in the
Yeah.
show. And there's no
Um,
sex time. There's no sex time
no,
now.
I think don't they kind of try to get back into it? Nate's like, "I should go. This is a family thing. Bye." Like, Nate is not interested in this at all.
Yeah, Nate, I think that he is like, "I think I could still do this," but she is like, "No," and
Yeah.
rub my back. And Nate, bless his heart, best boyfriend of the year, he gets bored rubbing her back, so he's gonna leave after after
Uh,
her mom has just said that she's getting married on her 17th birthday. I think Nate,
good.
I imagine this as Nate is rubbing her back for maybe like 5 minutes.
Yeah, like, oh, I imagine it is like a minute tops. Then he's like, "Well, I'm bored. I have to go."
He's gotta go get his burrito, his favorite thing to
Yeah,
eat.
he loves his burritos. Meanwhile, Serena's mom bursts into Serena's room to be like, "Oh, by the way, Blair's mom is getting married, and you're gonna be a bridesmaid." Because for some reason, Blair's mom is making Blair and all of Blair's friends her bridesmaids, which is a little strange because, like, doesn't she have other friends that she'd rather
I
be
don't
in the
know.
wedding party? No, I guess not.
Serena calls her brother to complain about this news. He is way too hungover to listen. And this spur of the moment is when she decides, you know what? I'm going to get into Brown. I'm going to show
Yeah.
the people who undermine me, like my brother who won't pick up, and Blair, that I'm not to be messed with. I'm actually a smart girl and I can read now. She makes the decision, brand shift, to read.
Yep, brand shift that she's a collegiate girly now. Um,
Exactly.
meanwhile, Jenny, our big boobed freshman, is asking her brother about what it's been like hanging out with Serena. And Dan's being like trying to be really cool in front of Jenny, like, I'm not gonna tell you like what it's like falling in love with this girl. But Serena does call Dan and asks him to be her wedding date. And that's when Jenny decides, hey, I need more friends because I'm just relying on living vicariously through my brother, and that's a little weird. So honestly, I applaud Jenny for being like, maybe I should branch out a little bit more.
Yeah, she is going to try to start hanging out with Vanessa. So she's gonna take her little ass over there in her Urban Outfitters outfit that she bought, and uh, I guess that's fine. They're poor,
Yeah,
but they shop at Urban Outfitters,
yeah,
which to me is money. But hey, who
yeah.
knows?
I feel like they're not like poor. I think they're poor in the sense that they're not as rich as the other people in this book.
Oh, like upper middle class,
Yeah, I
probably.
mean, like they both go to private schools. Like they're not poor,
Yeah, that's got to be. I mean, so expensive.
right? Um,
Um,
Meanwhile, Blair is still pressed about this engagement, but boy, is she going to pivot that she is going to lose her virginity at this wedding, which is taking place on her actual birthday, which is like so rude of a mom to do to their teenage daughter. Um,
yeah, it
yeah,
seems like she
not
forgot that that was her birthday when
yeah.
planning it.
I feel like Blair is very much neglected by her mother. Um, and we learn that Cyrus does have a son named Aaron, who's Blair's age, and Blair's mom's really excited for them to get along. Blair does tell Nate about this whole romantic plan that they'll have a hotel suite that they can make love in. And Nate just goes, that sounds fine.
That sounds fine. She goes, "Do
Yikes.
you wanna hang out?" He goes, "I gotta hang out with the guys." And she says, "Do you still love me?" And he hangs up.
Yikes. Honestly, truly younger me would be like, I have to chase him rather than being like, I need to dump this guy and move on. But like,
And that's what Blair is gonna do. She's scheming. She's like, "I gotta do something drastic to remind him that he loves me."
oh, yeah, she does.
Oh, yeah, she does.
So she's gonna go to Barney's and she's gonna find Nate a sexy gift for him to remind him that she and him are gonna have sex at some point.
Yeah, she gets him gray sweatpants, which, as we know, she was
They're
ahead of her
cashmere, Meggie.
time.
They're cashmere.
I imagine them as gray cashmere sweatpants.
Yeah, like
Maybe that's just my horny ass.
yeah,
But yes.
it's very funny her logic here of like, oh, if I get him a little present, he'll be down DTF, down to fuck.
So she tries. She tries to buy these sweatpants for Nate in a move that she calls a quote motherly act. Cute. But her
Yeah.
card gets declined. So what
Yikes.
does she
So
do?
she bold, she decides to steal these pants instead.
And you'll never guess who is in Barney's at the same time, Serena, who she
And
is not talking to.
Serena watches this happen, doesn't make a move. She's just kind of like, well, if I want to be friends with Blair again, I feel like I should just kind of support her in this and not say anything.
Honestly, ride or die. I love that.
Honestly,
Serena's making moves.
yeah.
They're gonna be
And
friends.
in Brooklyn at this time, there is a planned film meeting to kind of watch Serena's final film from the last book. And Vanessa and Jenny and Dan are all going to be there. And we kind of learn the story of how Vanessa has a crush on, or had a crush on Dan, but she is still very much dating the bartender from the first book now.
I get really annoyed with Vanessa here because she submitted this
Yeah.
short film that is essentially a adaptation of one scene from Tolstoy's War and Peace. And she has a grudge against Serena because Dan likes her. And she should have cast Serena, this very ethereal beauty, in this, but kind of shot herself in the foot. She cast this other person who's just not good in
Yeah.
it. And she's like watching it back and getting mad that her film is bad. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Vanessa, you did that to yourself.
Like literally, and she's mad that Serena's film is amazing because it's like, yeah, because Serena didn't self-sabotage herself, you dipshit.
Yeah, I don't know why she does that. So they're all waiting for
Ridiculous.
Serena to get there, but she is like an hour late to her film review. She gets home and she's like, "Oh, wait
Oh.
a minute."
Yeah, she's like, "Oh wait, I was at Barney's, sorry." And then she's like not even like, "Oh, let me call a cab there." She's like, "Not gonna make it. Sorry."
Yeah, she oh my gosh, and it just gets worse. So she calls the Humphrey house to tell Rufus, Dan's father, that she's not going to be at the film review. Can he get the message to Dan? And the dad quotes poetry that Dan has been writing about her to her.
That's so embarrassing.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, and, like, the only thing that's also just as cringy as this moment is Vanessa back at the bar wishing that Clark was just Dan instead. Like, all of this is such cringe, ick, yikes, it's awful.
The yearning doesn't stop there. Dan, knowing
The
that
yearning
Serena
doesn't stop there. That's a great segue.
Dan, knowing Serena is not going to come watch this, but he still wants to see Serena's film, goes alone to Vanessa's house to watch the film.
He's like, "This will bring us closer." And meanwhile, Jenny, she thinks Dan's being so pathetic right now, and she's on a little walk. She runs into Nate, who's playing soccer
Yeah.
with his burrito boys, and Nate spots Jenny and just asks her to hang out, and she ends up smoking weed with him and his friends. Like, they lie down in the grass, and then Nate
Yep.
invites her over to his house, so there's something a brewing here.
Yeah, they're Uranida Triangle, like the Bermuda Triangle, but it's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
where all
I
these
like it. I
crushes
like
are
it. Keep it.
going.
Keep it. Keep it.
He's like, "Dang, look at her rack. Come home with me."
That's
So
honestly literally what happens. Like we're laughing and like we're laughing like that's a bit, but like literally he's word for word in the book is like Nate couldn't help but notice her huge honkers
so they're
and
headed over to his house because he wants to stuff her full of food. He knows it's gonna go right to her tits.
that's how biology works. I'm sorry everybody. That's how
Eh,
anatomy is.
it's how anatomy works. So they're gearing up for a moment that might be cute later, but no cute moment right now. Dan is watching this short film. He's booked and busy up in Serena's
He's drinking a
business.
Coca-Cola trademark and really just all in on watching this film alone. I do imagine he is jerking off during this. I feel like he's that type of person. He seems that creepy to me.
He can't stop focusing on Serena's lips, and he's like, I must kiss her right now. I must call her and tell her how good this film is. And Serena kind of susses out on the phone that he's watching it alone, which she just got his poetry quoted back to her. She's like, this is weird.
Yeah.
But they're
Yeah.
going to Brown together this weekend, so it's
Yeah,
like, I
they're
don't
gonna go
know.
on a little trip. Meanwhile, Blair is telling Katie and Isabel, those two friends that we seem to have forgotten about, they finally make an appearance on page 80, that Serena is going to be a bridesmaid along with them in her mother's wedding. And that's not having a good time. They're all kind of mad about this. But at
Mhm.
another lunch table, Jenny sits down with Serena and Vanessa, and Serena tells Jenny flat out that the book Dan lent her is boring as fuck.
Yeah, Serena's just all around creeped out by Dan, and Jenny kind of wants to talk to Serena, but she's like, "God, well, I guess my stupid brother is blowing it." She wants to talk to Serena about Nate, get some advice, because apparently she doesn't know that Nate and Blair are dating. Because back at his house, it it was actually really weird. It was a very weird interaction that they had. He he's talking about, obviously he wants to sail, we know that.
Yeah,
And she's like, "Maybe I can come to Maine with you. But I'm only 14." And he's like, "I know. It's okay." That's what it says, which is so
that's
crazy.
bad. That's really bad. That's not good. But
Yeah.
Jenny, instead of talking to Serena about Nate, she pivots and she's like, "Can you start calling me Jennifer now so I'll
Oh my
seem not
god.
like I'm 14 and can impress this high school senior who's interested in me all of a sudden?"
Yeah. So I guess Jenny is Jennifer now. We will respect her choice to rebrand as a not 14-year-old.
Except it's the author doesn't even do that. The author still calls her Jenny.
Yeah, that is true. So Jenny's in a bit of a pickle. She's annoyed at Vanessa because Vanessa is trying to interrupt her talking to Serena a lot. And I mean, Nate is just ignoring Blair's emails. Blair's emailing Nate about
This
hanging out after
scene
school.
this scene is so funny because, like, Blair IMs, "Hello, early 2000s," Nate during lunch. Nate doesn't respond, and instead he IMs Jenny at the same time, and he asks her to hang out, and it's just so embarrassing for Blair, who's, like, clearly still like, "Can't wait to fuck you," and he's like, "Hey, 14-year-old, do you wanna hang out?
Yeah,
And
it's
and
wild.
then also during this scene at another computer, Dan is
Emails
writing
are
an
flying. Yeah.
email to Serena with a poem that's called "Love Conquers All," and it is
It is
horrifying.
essentially about him hanging himself while kissing her.
We've learned too much about Dan in a simple stanza. It is horrendous.
And he kind of addendums the end of the email being like, "Got an interview at Brown. Can't wait to go with you." Sending that.
Yeah, he signs it LOLs, hags, smiley face, exclamation point.
So, I guess Serena has that on her plate now.
Ugh. After school, Nate and Jenny meet at the Met steps. Nate is still thinking about his gap year, and then he almost kisses her on the Met steps, but then his friends show up instead, so that doesn't happen.
His friends show up instead. He's rearranging all of his plans for Jenny. Now he's like, "I'm gonna take 3 years off of before going to college. Maybe we can go together." What a fucking
That
loser.
right? Like, dude, pull back. Like, geez. Dan, he's giving Dan a run for his money.
In my favorite scene in this book, Dan is Dan is chain smoking to pass time, waiting for Serena to show up or die. We don't really know.
Yeah.
And he sees Jenny playing soccer. He sees Nate kiss her on the cheek, but that's filed away for a different time. Dan's buddy Zeke shows up to try to ball with him. Dan lets Zeke know that I have a girlfriend, and then he goes to shoot a basket and immediately airballs. It is my favorite scene in the book.
It is so funny. I feel like the author hates Dan as much as we do. I feel like Cecily's like, "Yo, I made a bad decision with this one. I really just gotta bring him down on every chance I get."
I just
Because
can visualize Dan in a button up and jeans. Like, he's clearly not dressed to play basketball. And he's like, "Yeah, I got a girlfriend now. So what?" And then he goes to shoot a free throw and he just
misses
completely.
the basket completely. It is so funny. Yeah, Dan just he's the worst. I hate that guy.
I know.
Blair now at home finds out that Cyrus and his son Aaron have just up and moved in. So this turnaround time was fast. And we
Yeah.
learn that Aaron, her age, has dreadlocks
Yeah, he does.
and he has a dog, and Blair is not down.
Yeah, this white guy with locks locked her cat in her room so his dog could have, like, reign of the house, and he immediately starts humping Blair's leg. The dog, not the stepbrother, but we do
Yeah.
kinda get the vibe that maybe that's where it could go.
Yeah, and I mean, Aaron is trying to get to know Blair. He like kind of shows up at her room, and he's like, "Do you want to have a Bud Light with me?" Because like Aaron's a chill guy. Blair does not drink beer though, and she is as standoffish as she possibly can be. She calls Nate to cry about like all of this because she's like, "I don't know, these two strange men have just moved into my home. I'm stressed. This is a lot," and Nate just is not helpful. And a close second follow-up scene is Blair, a favorite scene is Blair trying to lean on her boyfriend for emotional support and him just not giving a fuck at all.
She's like, "Do you wanna go to Yale with me this weekend? I'm just having a really hard time." And he's like, "Nah, I'm baked. The homies are excited for our road trip to Brown." And then he clicks that
Hangs
phone
up.
again. Hangs up
Yeah.
again.
He's got minutes that he cannot exceed.
She's not having a great day. After this, she goes out wedding dress shopping with her mom, and her mom not only says she'd look uglier than Serena as a bridesmaid, but that her
Right.
brother-in-law will be driving her to Yale this weekend, and she's just like, "I'm out. I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm leaving, getting my nails done." She's so sad. She goes home and she's like, "You know what? Fuck it, Aaron. You want to go to Yale tonight?" So
And
they do.
so little road trip city, they're going on their way. Dan and Serena are meeting at the train station so they can start their little weekend trip to Brown.
Mhm.
And Serena says finally that she read the poem, and like Dan's like, I'm gonna get all this feedback. But then Serena gets distracted, so she drops the and sees Nate and his friends across the way. And she goes and says hi to them. I think she sees them as a lifeline, and then basically merges her and Dan's trip with Nate and his buddy's trip because they're all going to Brown together.
Dan is not excited about that for
No.
sure. Aaron and Blair are making their own way up to Yale. They're not really bonding at all because Blair is obviously mad at Nate for not coming with her to Yale, but Nate is having the time of his life in his car. He is trying to drink and drive. What a blast.
Yeah.
He's also really high, I think. And Serena is like, this works out for me because I'm not alone with Dan.
Yeah, they're all drinking beers in this car too, which I think is so funny.
Yeah.
And also during this car ride with like Blair and Aaron, since these scenes are really spliced together, we learned that Blair, despite her snapping at Aaron, kind of starts to think he's hot, which is like, Blair.
I mean, she could shoot her shot. They stop at this Motel 6 for the night, you know?
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
Aaron loves Motel 6s for some reason.
yeah, Aaron's like, "Isn't it so fun to, like, cosplay, the
Cosplay
experience,
being poor.
the blue collar America experience?" And they get a room with 1 bed. Like, the
Yeah.
author is setting us up for
Yeah.
a
Right? But they
clueless
like
situation.
weirdly end up having fun together. They just like eat a bunch of snacks, they watch movies, they talk, they drink beer. Like they're having a pretty good time at the Motel 6 as they're RPGing being poor.
Yeah, and meanwhile at the Best Western, where Dan, Serena, Nate, and crew, they're getting drunk, they're hanging out. Dan's kinda coming to terms with the fact he's not gonna be near Serena tonight, so he's like, "I'm gonna get hammered as well." So just a lot of
Yikes.
teenage
Yeah.
drinking.
Dan goes to pee in the middle of the night, and Nate and Serena are sleeping next to each other and they're holding hands in their sleep. And Dan is fucking pissed by this because he's a serial killer. And so
Yeah.
Dan's just mad, you know?
Not Dan's day, not Blair's day, because uh-oh, she went to bed at 2 a.m., forgot to set an alarm at 9 a.m. for her interview. I did look up, or I think that they said how far away the Motel 6 was from Yale,
Yeah.
though, and it was only like 25 minutes. So
Yeah,
she's
they were
getting
so
ready.
close by.
She's getting ready fast. She's showering. But Aaron left the car lights on, so the battery's dead.
Yikes.
I
Yikes.
gotta
But it
jump the
gets fixed
car.
pretty fast. I will say it is funny here because like Aaron is poking so much fun at Blair for being like too stressed out about this because it's like it's not like she missed her interview. She just woke up like an hour later than she anticipated. So like they still have time, but Blair is freaking out.
Oh, yeah, she is not happy about
Yeah.
it.
But she gets to her interview in time, which is
She
good.
does.
The bad thing here is poor Blair, who has been practicing and reciting questions for this interview back and forth, front to back, panics. She fumbles this interview so fucking hard.
She has, like, no boundaries. Like, the least of her worries is that she can't answer a recent book she read. She switches to, like, tragic heroine mode, says her
Yeah.
life is a mess, talks about the breakup, and she admits that she shoplifted.
Yeah. She's just trauma dumping. This is a therapy session. She's using this as a confessional in a Catholic church. She is
Yes.
just telling him everything about her life right now, none of which make her a qualified candidate to go to any college.
She also takes off her shoe and starts massaging her foot. And
Yeah.
asks him to let her in early.
And it's not like, here's the thing is like Blair's running on like 6 hours of sleep. It's not like she pulled like she's been up for 72 hours and is manic all of a sudden. Like this energy really does come out of left field.
And to make matters worse, as she is exiting this interview, she kisses the interviewer on the cheek.
Yikes.
Just go for his
Um
mouth. Yeah.
Meanwhile at Brown, Dan, Nate, and Serena are also doing interviews. Serena's also not doing so hot. She's very much like can talk confidently, but her answers have really no substance. And they keep kind of asking her to like dive in deeper to like, great, so tell me more about that. And she cannot tell them more about anything.
Yeah, she's got this really rigid older guy who's kind of grilling her on getting kicked out of boarding school and
Yeah.
seems to think that she's vapid.
Yeah. And
Nate, though,
is
is
he
doing the
wrong?
best. No, he's
Nate is
definitely not.
killing his interview. Surprise of the book. He literally is like very honest. He's like, "Hey, I'm here because I'm here with my friends. I don't think I'm qualified to go to Brown." And his interviewer is like, "She graduated 2 years ago. She's hot. She's fun. She's cool." She's like, "Don't give a shit about your grades. Tell me more about what you do in your free time." And they are really hitting it off.
They are really hitting it off. I feel like if someone was like, "I don't really wanna go here," at an Ivy League, I'd be like, "Okay, well, I don't why are you here
Right?
then?" I don't know.
Yeah.
Not
Um,
forcing you to come here.
Yeah, right? But Dan also, he gets an equally, if not more pretentious interviewer, and it also does not go very well.
Yeah, Dan is stuck on the fact that Nate and Serena were holding hands, and he does fine talking about literature to them, but at some point during this interview, he starts like realizing Serena doesn't love him, and he starts to break down and bolts out
Yeah,
of
he
the
gets up and
interview.
leaves. It's yikes. And like the thing is like like the fact that he's having a reaction to a girl that he's not even dating, not liking him that much is insane.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's such a nightmare.
Uh
So he bolts out. Serena's like, my brother's getting a keglet party, so they're gonna have a party, I
yeah.
guess.
Yeah, and Blair is like, Aaron, I blew it. Let's go home. And they go home. But during all of this, Jenny and Vanessa have been hanging out, interview lists, college lists. They watched Vanessa's film, and they're kind of just like vibing. And Jenny, we learn, is just as delusional as her older brother. She's like, yeah, well, I have this boyfriend now. It's really awesome. And she's also like, now that I'm mature and I have a boyfriend, I'm gonna tell you some advice, girlfriend. You should go for my brother Dan because I know you love him. So Jenny's really just doing full change.
She's like, Vanessa, listen, if you just change everything about yourself, Dan will totally love you. Just grow out your hair and put
Yeah,
on
and also
makeup.
be blonde, have huge tits, and also be rich. He'll love that.
I love that. So Vanessa's like, huh, I think I'll consider that. I think I'll try to do that. All that
Yeah,
Blair has going for her, and Blair and Vanessa and Serena are in this film festival, the Constance Billard Film Festival. And one of them needs to win it on their resume.
yeah,
So as Blair's talking to Aaron, she is like, I really hope that I win this film festival. And we'll see. That's her new
and
plan.
surprise, Serena wins the film festival, but Serena's gonna do a act of charity and give her Cannes film tickets to Vanessa, who's never been, because Serena's already been before, and that was the prize for winning. And meanwhile, Blair is pissed because she really was like, this was my last hope to like kind of save face at Yale. So win for
Yeah.
Serena, kind of win for Vanessa. Blair's bringing up the rear and not having a good time.
I know. Serena calls Dan to let him know that she won this film festival. He's acting really disinterested. But I mean, he's Serena's plus one to Blair's mom's wedding. You can't
Yeah,
back out now.
still
So
agrees to go. And Jenny and Nate are now catching up after Brown weekend. They're holding hands. Nate finally kisses her. And
Ooh.
Nate's internal monologue here is interesting because he's basically like, I want to date both Blair and Jenny because Blair's really hot and rich, and Jenny has huge tits and is fun. And I want them both because I get different things from both of these relationships.
Nate, I think that Nate was just born in the wrong decade. And I know that people say that, but I think if he was in 2022, he could manipulate the fuck out of these girls and be like, "I'm Polly." You know, and
Yeah. Oh,
it's
100%.
it's actually you're repressing me by not letting me date
I'm not,
both
yeah,
of
he's like, I'm
you.
not really into labels. I'm just really kind of finding myself and really just having a fun time right now. That's all
Yeah.
I want to focus on. Um, yeah.
Blair, though, so he's trying to figure out what to do with Blair, but Blair is starting to piece together that something is wrong a little bit. She's getting nails done with the other bridesmaids, including Serena, for her mom's wedding. And this is when Blair figures out that Serena and Nate, they both had an interview at the same time at Yale. Or not Yale, at Brown. They obviously talked to each other.
Yeah.
And Blair's one rule for Nate was you can't be friends with Serena. You can't
Yeah.
talk to her. So she is like, they're fucking again. They have to be fucking again.
And while Blair is right that they did talk and break that rule, Blair is wrong in the fact that Nate has found a third woman to add into this mix.
Yeah, she's not right about that.
And then right around the corner, it's wedding day. Boy, did they get this wedding planned and in the books very fast. Blair immediately thinks Aaron looks hot in his little tux. And
And
Blair
that's great
is,
because he says that she looks hot in her dress to her directly as her stepbrother.
yep, awesome for them. And Blair is still trying to bone Nate, despite her now attraction to her stepbrother and the fact that Nate and her have not talked in like 3 weeks at this point. And Nate the entire time is just thinking about Jenny. He wishes she was there.
I want to see Nate's ACT score so badly because his critical thinking is so bad. He has plans to see Jenny and invite her to the reception of his girlfriend's mom's
Yeah.
wedding.
Yeah, he's like, "Well, there's gonna be so many people there, like, they'll hardly even notice that me, the boyfriend of the maid of honor, has brought somebody else to the wedding."
I don't know what his plan is, but say la vie. Serena,
And
meanwhile, she is worried that Dan is not going to show up to the wedding. He is, though, he's in the backseat brooding, using
yeah,
gossipy
and
moms.
poor Blair is laying it on so thick with Nate in, like, an attempt to keep him interested, and Nate just kind of, like, up and leaves and goes into the lobby. It is not good.
I know, it's, oh my gosh, it's so bad. She like asks a photographer to take their photo and then she turns around and he's just gone.
Yikes, it is bad.
It is.
Yeah. And also Blair's kind of bummed that she's not sitting at, like, her friend's table. She has to sit with, like, her mom. Um, and
Yeah.
Nate also refuses to leave the wedding with her. He's like, "Come on, Blair, we're at a wedding. We can't leave."
No, they're not gonna leave. They have seated everyone. Serena, Dan, and Nate are at the same table, which Dan hates. And Chuck starts grilling. We get a little cameo from Chuck.
Well,
He is grilling Serena on if she's dating Dan, but she's not answering. I wouldn't
yeah.
either. I would fear for my life, to be
Yeah.
honest.
And in the lobby of this hotel that this wedding is at, Jenny and Vanessa have decided to make an appearance. And Nate finds them in the lobby. And Nate also feels like maybe this was a bad idea. He starts to realize that this might not have been the move.
But he
And
doesn't care.
also
They start kissing.
they start kissing almost immediately. And Blair's mom, who pays no attention to her daughter, is also like, Blair, don't you just want to change your last name with the rest of us? Come on, Blair, change your identity for us.
She's really overwhelmed by this. She's like, I'm not gonna answer this. I need to get up. I need to find Nate. I need to fuck Nate. And she gets up to try to go find him. And this is when she sees on the way to her bathroom that Nate isn't her leading man. He is kissing a freshman, a 14-year-old girl. He's a loser.
Yep. So she runs to the bathroom And also in the midst of this, Dan is like, once and for all, I'm going to get the love of my life to tell me about the poem that I wrote for her. And Serena just calls him intense. She says, "Hey, I think you're a little intense."
She's like, I read the poem, thought it was intense. He's hurt by this, ignores her request to dance, and goes and cries in a corner as he
Yeah.
sees Nate and Jenny kissing.
Yeah, and then he's like, "I'm gonna be a man about this," and he tries to break up Jenny and Nate and fails miserably. And then he sees Vanessa also at the bar and is like, "You know what? I've decided she's kind of hot now."
That was so wild. Him trying to break it up, Vanessa being like, Dan, stop. And then all of the air gets sucked out of the room in the slow motion of him noticing Vanessa is wearing a dress. Like, come
Yeah, it
on.
turned out Dan just didn't like that Vanessa wore pants. Like that was the thing that he hated the most.
Yeah, Serena sees this and is like, good for them. Good
Yeah,
for me,
like,
too.
honestly, Serena's, like, finally breathing again. Serena's like, "What a relief that I don't have to deal with this guy anymore."
So she goes to the bathroom. She notices Blair is crying in the bathroom. She kind of reaches out to her and they make up. Everything's water under the bridge with them. And
Yeah,
Nate, in another bold move, takes Jenny into the reception to dance. He's over anyone seeing them.
and yes, Jenny and Nate, they go to dance at the wedding, great move, and Dan and Vanessa slide over and take their seats at the bar so they can begin kissing, and Serena and Blair just go in, hang out, and watch movies in the hotel suite that Nate and Blair were supposed to be fucking in, so they're kind of friends again, which is cool.
Yep, that's the entire recap that Gossip Girl reports in the end.
Yeah.
Van, that's Dan and Vanessa's celebrity name, and Nenny, that's gonna be Nate and Jenny's for me. Unless, do we think Jate is better? I think Jate is better.
Nate's a little bit better.
Jade is
Yeah.
better. They're dating. Serena and Blair are friends again. Say la vie.
Yikes. Yeah.
Bon appetit.
Yeah. Weird. I guess, yeah, kind of a happy ending. I don't know if you can call it that. Um,
Yeah. It doesn't seem happy, but it seems necessary for every character.
yeah. So where this story will go next, you'll have to join us for next time. But we're going to transition into our top five, which is our top five ways we would improve all of the college interviews that have happened in this book. Because boy, did a lot of them go every which direction.
Yes. And who wants to start?
You should start, Meg.
So, coming in at number 5 of ways we would have improved people's college interview, Nate couldn't have really gone any higher than he did, but if he sealed the deal and hooked up with his college interviewer, I really think he would have had a chance at getting the
Yeah.
brown.
Yeah. And it's like he still might, but like now he'd really have a
Now he
chance because I'm
really
sure
would
the
have a chance.
interviewer would be like, "Yes, I want to fuck this guy."
For sure.
Number 4, we're going to talk about Dan. So, Dan, easy fix here. Probably shouldn't have just walked out because a girl didn't like him. He also could have been a little less pretentious,
Mhm.
but to really elevate his performance here, we just think he needed a little more style, little chest hair popping through top of the shirt, cool chain around the neck, a little more fashion, maybe smoking a cigarette throughout just to really lay on thick that this guy is pretentious as fuck.
17-year-old smoking a cigarette indoors, I'd be scared. I'd be
Yeah.
intimidated.
I'd be like, go to this school because you are going places.
That's a future CEO if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, 100%.
Number 3, we think that if Serena had developed hobbies, maybe a personality a bit sooner, I think that she could have gone above and beyond.
Yeah, that would I think the really big thing that was missing from her interview was unfortunately substance. Maybe she should have joined the cross country team. Maybe she should have started scrapbooking. Maybe she should have started making movies sooner. The possibilities are endless here.
They really are.
And then this is going to be a number 2 and a number 1 that Meggie and I are going to tackle because boy does Blair deserve the most fixing in this top 5. Um
Mhm.
so I guess here's the thing that Blair probably either shouldn't have kissed her interviewer on the cheek or should have fully went for it and flat out made out with her interviewer. I feel like the shying away of the kiss cheek it just wasn't enough in either direction. She either
Yeah.
had to go full into it or full away from it.
She could have done that. She could have supplemented her diet with maybe a B12 multivitamin
Yeah.
before.
Little cup of tea before the interview, or calm her nerves, maybe a little light jog in the morning.
Maybe do a little dance after or before
Yeah!
or during.
Kind of
I
like a
think during the
closing, like,
interview.
they're like, "Hey, final question, do you have any questions for me?" And she goes, "Yeah, plug this into your aux cord, please. Do
Mhm.
you know what I'm about to do for you?" And they're like, "No."
No.
Immediately starts dancing. Kind of a
I
power move.
I think that would've gotten her in early admission
Yeah.
instead of her just flat out
That
asking if
would
she
have
can be
gotten
in.
her a degree. She didn't even have to go to Yale at that point.
And if she's not gonna go and kiss the interviewer, maybe just go all the way with your stepbrother. We know you want it.
I mean,
You know?
and here's the thing, Cecily, it's like, why are we kind of teasing this? Like, maybe it should just happen or it shouldn't happen so we can have an opinion on it rather than like this kind of weird dancing around this weird tension that they have.
The late 90s, early 2000s was all about emphasizing the fact that your stepbrother is not your brother. So you're not it's not your brother.
That's gonna be on someone's gravestone someday. I can feel it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Meg, let's, before we wrap this up, talk about our canceled character of this week. Who should it be?
I think that's pretty easy. I don't know who our canceled character was in the first. Oh, it was Chuck.
It's
The
Chuck,
second one is
absolutely.
gonna have to be Nate. What are you
Yeah, I
doing?
think it has to be Nate. He's creeping on a 14-year-old. Dan is a very close second though, because
Oh,
boy is he
yeah.
insane.
Dan was pretty
So
bad.
yeah, that's pretty bad. But that's gonna be it for this episode of Yeah, We Read It. This was us reading You Know You Love Me, a Gossip Girl novel by Cecily Von Ziegler, sir. I'm reading the book across the room right now.
Good
I
job.
tried with that, and we'll be back next week with an all new episode. And you can keep up with us on social media. Maggie, tell them the social medias.
We are on Instagram at Meggie_and_Laura. We are on Twitter and TikTok at Yeah, We Read It. We don't really post on TikTok that much. I'll start posting
But
again
we
on
might
Twitter.
get ahead of the game. Follow us there.
Get out of the game. You can also email us at MeggieandLauraPresent@gmail.com, and that
Ooh.
is our social footprint.
Yay, social footprint. We did it. So eco-friendly. Cool.
Woo!
Well, we did it. All right. Thank you for listening. We love you. Bye.